This is Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast. Welcome to Inside the Commission, a podcast all about gambling in Great Britain. Here we'll cover all the latest topics and trends from across the gambling sector and discuss the big issues that matter to you. From consumer queries to industry insights, we'll bring you the facts from the front line of regulation and share the stats and stories from those in the know. For all the latest discussions and updates, you can subscribe to our Gambling Commission YouTube channel, or you can find us on your preferred platform, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Inside the Commission. Over the last few episodes, we've been looking at the different advisory groups, and this time we're going to be looking at the Digital Advisory Panel. So welcome to Christian. Hi Christian.
Hi.
And we've also got Andrew, who's joined us again. Welcome, Andrew.
Oh, yeah.
So for the purposes of those who maybe haven't yet listened to the other episodes, would you be able to introduce yourselves and tell us about your role here at the Commission? So Andrew, over to you first of all.
Thanks, Anna. So yeah, I'm Andrew. I'm the Commission's head of advisory groups, and that covers support for our Board of Commissioners, heading the Digital Advisory Panel, and our two other advisory groups, so the Lived Experience Advisory Panel and Industry Forum.
Fantastic, thanks. What about you, Christian? Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so Christian McMahon, I chair the Digital Advisory Panel. My background is in change transformation. I'm sort of a board level IT transformation leader. I help organizations deliver enterprise transformation programs, operating model modernizations, technology-enabled change, ERP, mainly across the private equity, but multiple sectors.
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining us, and we're really looking forward to hearing from you today. So I would strongly urge people to listen to the other episodes where we met Kirsty Caldwell. So she was from our Industry Forum. But if you're listening to this one fresh, just to give you a bit of context, that was looking at how that group functions, and we'll be doing something similar with speaking to Christian. So to start off with, Andrew, perhaps would you be able to tell us about the background for the panel and how it's evolved?
Yeah, absolutely. So the purpose, if you like, of Digital Advisory Panel, it was established to advise us on obviously the digital landscape, but it's a lot broader than that. So there's emerging trends in other organizations that may impact how the gambling market operates. So technology is obviously at the heart of a lot of what we do, and the pace of that change, particularly in the online gambling industry, can throw up sort of risks, opportunities as well, but regulatory challenges within that. So as the industry regulator, we've got to make sure that we're as equipped to face those challenges as we possibly can be. Whilst we would look to do a lot of that within the Commission, the advisory groups are an external lever that we can lean on. They give us specialist support from their backgrounds. So the membership of Digital Advisory Panel will be people from different sectors. They'll have dealt with things like AI, data, obviously technology, but like Christian's touched on, large scale organizational change. And they give us a richness of insights from different sectors and different organizations that we wouldn't realistically be able to hold within the Commission. And they're from sectors that are notoriously expensive to hire from within. So we get access to that insight and the members' networks as well, at a sort of subsidized rate. And we ask them to devote about a day a month to the members to help us with various aspects of our work.
That's great, thank you. I suppose the next question is around Christian and your background. So you've touched on a bit there, sort of your career thus far, but sort of how did your sort of career journey bring you to then being involved with the Digital Advisory Panel here at the Commission?
I was elected to the role by somebody I've worked with previously. In my line of work, I tend to work a lot with boards. I tend to work with a lot of senior level people who obviously our approach for such roles and talk through and talk about these roles. And I was approached and thought it was something that matched with my ambitions to create more portfolio roles for myself, but also in terms of a fantastic cause in an industry, and following up on the sterling work that the Gambling Commission does, and any ways I could help assist and build upon that.
That's great, thank you. So in terms of the role of the panel and us as a regulator, would you be able to elaborate why you think it's important that we have a group like this as part of a regulator?
I think it's important for a number of reasons. It's an external sounding board, as Andrew said, with relevant skills and experience. Sometimes it's easier to talk to people who are a third party, people who've been through these types of challenges, delivered these types of objectives before, help you stop going down cul-de-sacs or spending money where you don't need to. And, if there's funds that need managing better, help manage those funds to deliver more and get more bang for your buck. We can help frame the relevant strategic programs and objectives that you need to deliver. Helping bring multiple parties together, I think, is a key part of what we do. Joining up the programs, create a unified voice, and reducing that task overlap. And that single voice is often more relevant and better able to get funding. And we can help influence outcomes at board level as well. We do have a direct, line into Charles Council as GC chair and the board, and I think it's fantastic that we're able to help bring lots of those challenges and work that's being done to the board's notice, and to help get those delivered through the business.
Thank you. Andrew, what about sort of from the perspective of the commission then? What would you say?
Christian's made some pretty much all the main points, but it's important to give the right weight to the point that he made about supporting board. So really, that the advisory groups provide a lot of reassurance to our board. So if colleagues are working on a particular project, for example, and there's some sort of recommendation that's got to go to the board, if something's gone in front of the digital advisory panel, and we've got their insight and their input, it adds real credibility and weight to what goes before the board, and they really value that, given the way that our board is structured, because they're not from the gambling industry or anything like that. So it's really important that we have that expertise. Yeah. And I know that colleagues find it beneficial as well, because in any of the digital advisory panel meetings, the members will always come up with points that people hadn't thought of. So it always helps to develop and expand, enhance their work.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And, in any sort of professional capacity, differing perspectives are always really valued. So that makes a lot of sense. Christian, coming back to you, I think it would be really interesting to hear about some of the pieces of work that have been particularly satisfying or successful that you've worked on during your time.
Yeah, I think we're building a really strong dynamic between the DAP and the Commission's teams, with success building around integrating better and helping more people in their teams. And what Andrew was saying there, I think we're having more people come to us now for help and advice and guidance and support, which I think is fantastic. So I think building up a level of trust and traction with teams, and people kind of mentioning come and talk to us would be quite beneficial, is the biggest success. Helping those teams knit together better, joining up strategic objectives, helping them see the gaps.
So that's teams. Sorry, Christian. That's teams within the commission then that are sort of reaching out.
Yeah. And I think it's helping them sort of not things fall between the gaps, helping them join the dots, work together. We've just added 3 new members to the DAP. Again, fantastic people with great backgrounds, and all slightly different to what we have now. So I think the broad spread of what we have really encourages people to come to us to get those pieces of feedback, support, and assistance in what they're trying to achieve. And I think those skills that the DAP has, is really beneficial now with the spread of people. And I think it's fantastic. The biggest success being that more people are asking us for help. And, joining up with the CTO recently. We're helping advise on the digital strategy, the IT strategy, and people are saying, why didn't we do this before? And I think that's the biggest success. I think is the trust, the relationships, the new relationships, and building on existing.
That's great. Andrew, would you add anything further to that as well about how you think it's worked?
I think there's sort of one example when you talk about pieces of work being particularly successful. So a recent example is a project called the Regular Feed of Operator Core Data, which was run by our data innovation team, and was sort of starting off when I took up this role and started working with digital advisory panel. So it was really in its sort of concept phase, and over a couple of years it's gone right through its different stages, with digital advisory panel working with that data innovation team regularly every month or every other month, and it's resulted in a daily feed of data coming from a small number of operators, which is not something that we've done before. Had numerous challenges to overcome along the way to get to where it is now, but the insight from that panel was vital, really, and it's resulted in something that is up and running, working, and likely to be. We're going to look at expanding it and how we expand that in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much. And that's often referred to as ROCD. Is that correct? Yeah. ROCD is a term that's often
regular feed of operator core data. Yeah, it's a mouthful.
This is Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast. Alongside Inside the Commission, the podcast you're listening to right now, why not subscribe to our e-bulletin? It's a bi-monthly e-newsletter which contains information about consultations, announcements, and important updates about regulation, anti-money laundering, and compliance issues. Visit our website, gamblingcommission.gov.uk/e-bulletin. This is Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast.
So another question I think links to a running theme that we've had in Inside the Commission, which is around sort of new technology. So in the other episode that we've recently published, we met with the market insights team, and obviously looking at the market and looking at sort of trends, there is a lot of scoping the new ways that businesses are using AI, and that's across the board in every sector, isn't it? But I wondered if it was an interesting thing to start to think about what's on the horizon for digital innovation in the gambling industry, and really what that means for consumers and operators.
I mean, obviously, AI-driven innovations and keeping up with very large and very innovative teams at operators, is the way the industry is moving forwards. I'll also mention crypto, micro betting, deep fake security, regulating virtual casinos, biometric liveness detection. Do they blink? Are they real people, or are they AI-generated videos? And hyper-personalization. I think a lot of those things are very complex, very hard to understand areas right now, but I think they're areas which are really, really being innovated upon and will move into this sector quite quickly. And we just need to make sure that, but where technical innovation is still forming and growing, but they're being kept protected in as safe as environment as possible.
But I think, Christian, did you do a session with our board that touched on this?
I did. That was about crypto. Is crypto something that operators can take payment in, or is that something in which we will use as a viable currency for gambling tools and such? And I think we had a number of demonstrations of wallets, with a number of demonstrations of ways in which companies are looking at it, but it wasn't as yet a viable currency or platform that we could use or license.
Yeah. And there've been lots of conversations around that, I think, and that's something we also touched on with the industry forum when we met with Kirsty.
Yeah.
Some of those terminologies as well, sort of the deep fake.
Yes.
Unless you know what you're looking for, it's very difficult to notice those. And I think the benchmark is getting ever increasingly higher in terms of being able to tell just from a quick glance whether the person that you're looking at is real or
yeah. I've seen
fake.
lots of AI tools now generate panels like this. They generate panel videos. They generate discussions about topics and areas that you want to feed questions into, and a lead will ask questions to a panel and receive the answers. It's frightening, but also amazing. As a technologist, it's absolutely amazing. But it's, you want to know what you're looking at and seeing is real, and you want to be able to define in future what's fake and what's not. And I think that it's got lots of scope for damaging effects, but in the future, it may be used to enhance coverage of news items or sports or other things. But what we don't want to get away is from natural observation and taking what we see as read. We appreciate when we watch TV, it can be fictional, but we want to know that when we're expecting it to be real, that it is real.
Yeah, just to reassure listeners, we are in fact real people.
Yes, we are in fact. Contrary to popular belief.
Yeah, we definitely, and we're not so polished that this would be believed to be an AI fake or fake voices. I suppose as well from our perspective as working in digital comms and thinking about those things, there is so much around in making sure that you have trust from your audiences, and trust once gone is almost impossible to get back as well. So that's another factor as well in terms of the trust, both for consumers in us as the regulator, but also trust that consumers might have in when they're using a licensed platform, like what that looks like and how those operators are using that new technology. Okay, so I think we've touched on a few themes there around new technology and AI, but Andrew, have you maybe got any sort of examples that you could share about your perspective on this?
So just to give an example from this week on how the panel is going to add value for us, is that one of the new members that we've appointed to the panel in the last few weeks has got a strong background at large organisations. We've got a call with her later on today where she's going to share her experience when she's worked at Alibaba and Shein and been quite senior in those organisations. And she's got some thoughts on the challenges that we'll face from the consumer perspective around AI data. And her view is that regulators tend to lag operators, or those that regulate, by about 18 to 24 months on data and detection. So she wants to share what she's seen at Alibaba and Shein to help develop our work, which is just the sort of insight that gets us interested and excited and that we're looking for from the panel. So I've got that call today.
Well,
yeah, very much so, because those kind of platforms are at the cutting edge of that work, aren't they? So sort of the very fast moving industries that can only be very insightful and helpful. Okay, well, thanks so much, Christian. Thank you, Andrew. That was really welcome. Insightful. Much appreciated, and we'll look forward to hearing the next part of this sort of mini series, and that'll be when we talk to the lived experience advisory panel as well. But thank you.
Thanks very much.
This is Inside the Commission, a Gambling Commission podcast. To stay up to date with the latest content, you can subscribe to our Gambling Commission YouTube channel, or you can find us on your preferred platform, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening.